Hey team, Jeremy Hauser here, host of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. Exciting episode and an amazing guest, all things selling here on this episode as we share other-centered selling. We talk bad habits, the number one habit to avoid in order to become a better salesperson. You won't want to miss out on that one. Beliefs that drive behavior and also removing pressure. Pressure hurts your confidence. Learn how to do that in this episode and the importance of validation of customers' perspective. A lot to go through here in these notes. Make sure you tune in and subscribe. Check out this episode.
Systems work. People fail. Welcome to InsureMark's Advisor Mentorship Podcast with Vice President Jeremy Hauser.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Advisor Mentorship Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Hauser, and wow, what a topic we have today here and an amazing guest. We are talking all things sales. So entrepreneurs, if you have anyone on your team, this is an episode for anybody in sales. I have an incredible guest, Marc Lamson, who is the president of ASLAN. How are we doing today, Marc?
I'm doing phenomenal, Jeremy. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thanks for being on, and love to hear a little more about your background. I'm sure the audience themselves, if they listen to the Breakthrough Advisor, they may have heard you previously. But for those that don't know, ASLAN has been a very well documented resource of simplicity in InsureMark for years now. The 14 years of me being at InsureMark, it's awesome to see your evolution grow too at the company. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who Marc Lamson is and who's ASLAN?
Sounds great. My personal professional training for being in sales and sales training is an engineering degree, because that's where it's a good start. I think that's always good. So I have a technical background, and I said technical sales is for everybody in engineering who just can't get an engineering job. And 6 months after college, I was on the phone selling battery backup systems for a company in Rhode Island. I just fell in love with I've always, kind of worked with people, worked with customers, but started selling. I led a sales organization there, and I found a company called ASLAN Training, 2003, to come train our sales organization, train our service organization, hired them, had a big impact. And 3 years later, I left to go pursue my passion for training and coaching. So that makes it, that's in 2006. Mm-hmm. So now we've been here almost 20 years. And ASLAN is a sales training firm. We focus on organizations, front lines. So it's the front line. So you said this is for salespeople. And the question is, well, who are salespeople? Are they the
Correct.
people that like sell up front and take money? These are the people on the back end that support and serve. I mean, so anybody who works with the customer has a duty to help the customer by better connecting, serving, and influencing. And so we create programs and tools and training and coaching to help organizations and individuals do that. So thanks for having me.
This will be an exciting episode. And as I was doing some due diligence prior to our conversation today, actually, I should have asked you beforehand. So have you ever, It's going
to be an awkward question. I mean, you're just going to ask me, this is just going to be an awkward question.
No. So have you ever seen the movie Wolf of Wall Street with
I have.
Okay. So there's the very end. So I mean, there's a lot of very, fascinating sales and just environments and so forth. But at the very end, there's that question where Leo, who plays Jordan Belfort, is on stage, and he steps off stage and he asks the audience, he walks up to about 4 individuals. He goes, "Sell me this pen." Mm-hmm. And then the first guy, he goes, "Well, it's an amazing pen for professionals." He grabs the pen, that he hands it to the next guy. The next guy says, "Well, you can use this pen to write down." Jordan grabs the pen, and then he goes on and on and on. So the reason I bring that up is when people think sales, like to what you just alerted, that's not necessarily sales, but there's a big message in that. So like, tell us who makes a good salesman, or tell us a little bit about sales.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's always evolving, but when I think about, what makes a good salesperson, I mean, people's ability, if we talk about ability, it comes from 3 things. It comes from talent, skills, and knowledge. Those 3 things create our ability to do anything, sell or play the piano or sports or anything. And so, talent is what God gives us. And that's really pretty hard to change or adjust. And so when we hire people, look for that. I don't know what the talent is, but I think about this: good salespeople, 100% of the time, this is kind of the black and white thing. People talk about curiosity, but it's a decision to care. That's the most important, most difficult decision we make for every situation we step into, because only one person can be first.
Mm-hmm.
Do I decide that I have a commission and a quota and the numbers are tight, and somebody's pushing on me to make my number,
Mm-hmm.
or do I say, you know what, this person has a lot going on, they have a lot of options, I'm the expert in this field, I can help them sort that out, and maybe my option is good and maybe my option is not good, or maybe timing is wrong, and so I actually decide to care and treat them just like I would my family, my wife, my kids. And when I make that decision, my motive is transparent one way or the other. And so if I don't make that decision, that's clear. But if I do, that's also clear, and people see that. So that's, I think, the number one thing that makes a good salesperson is a decision. And I'll say this, Jeremy, it is a decision. I don't know. You're a healthy, athletic, outdoors guy. You hike, you out spending some outside.
We're running. Yeah.
Okay. You ever used a compass? You ever been in Boy Scouts? Know how to use a compass?
Yes. Very aware.
How does a compass work? Put you on the spot here. How does a compass work?
Very elementary here. North, south, east, west.
Perfect. Right. Yeah. There's a magnetic, there's some magical magnetic field up at the North Pole, I guess, supposedly. But when you hold a compass up, that needle always points to north, no matter where you are in the world. That's how you know your relative direction.
Mm-hmm.
We have a compass as human beings. And naturally, without any deviation, it pulls to us. It's our survival instinct. It's me first. It's where our brain goes to. And that's okay. That makes us human beings. The difference is between self-centered people and other-centered people is an awareness. They say, I'm getting ready to get into this meeting, and I'm thinking about me and what am I going to say and what am I going to do and how much money am I going to make, or whatever your next conversation is going to be. And other people say, I'm going to take the pressure off of me, and it's about this person. And I catch myself doing that all the time, getting ready for something, thinking about me versus a decision for the other person. And that's hard to do, and it has to happen every time. And good salespeople do it all the time.
Have you ever written an annuity case and it took not only days, maybe weeks or months to get the funds transferred from another insurance carrier? That is one of the biggest pains in our industry, and we may have a solution for you with a particular carrier. Remember North American, the company that is 139 years old and holds an A+ rating with AM Best, S&P, and Fitch. Also, the carrier that has the Secure Horizon suite of FIAs, which was awarded Deal of the Year in 2024 by SRP Americas. Oh yeah, that company. Well, they now have a cutting edge technology that is paperless and just made business a lot more simple around transfers and 1035 exchanges. This process goes a little like this. If they request a 1035 exchange from another carrier within 24 to 48 hours, that carrier through the DTCC platform must process that request and feed those funds digitally to North American. You heard that right. No more having to hear from the transfer company, we didn't get the paperwork, or we're in the process of manually entering that request, and also no more conservation efforts. So, what does that mean for you as a writing advisor or agent? First of all, no more headaches because of emails or calls back and forth with the carriers. And more importantly, business gets issued faster, and that means you get paid commissions that much quicker. If you're interested in finding out which carriers are currently participating and which ones will be following soon, go to www.insuremarkamp.com/Jeremy and click on Learn More. Couldn't agree more. And that's really where as long as Simplicity InsureMark has been partnered with ASLAN, the first thing when people ask, about, who helps you guys with sales training or just with y'all's organization, if y'all look at, so obviously we are in sales. If I think of Aslan, one thing stands out all the time, multiple things, but the one thing it does is other-centered selling. Other-centered selling. And I think that's what you're talking about here, is more so having the opportunity to see the world through their eyes and communicate in that aspect. So in 2025, so today, especially with technology and everything, just the instant dopamine of instant gratification. So what makes a good sales organization today in 2025?
Every organization is different, and there's a lot of focus on tools and sales enablement and technology, and all those things are great and important, and they're changing. But here's what never changes, and here's what's, I would say, another kind of black and white. Sales organizations, I don't know what a sales organization is, but more than one person, anywhere where there's leaders, uh, the highest performing sustained sales organizations have frontline leaders. This is from my perspective. I can't speak to, we're a training company. We focus on the front lines, how people sell, how people lead. We when we go to an organization, we say, let's flip it upside down. Let's not put the CEO up top and have an org chart. The customers are at the top, period, of every organization. That's who we're serving.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a front line. Those are salespeople, customer success, service, whatever you want to call it. But those are people who are serving them. And then under that are the frontline leaders who serve those frontline sellers who serve customers. And when the organization is built around that, it's frontline leaders. We've figured this out. This is what we see. Most leaders, frontline leaders, measure in two dimensions. They measure results, which is super important. What's the revenue? What's the profit? Whatever, premium, whatever, pick the number. And they measure the heck out of activity. How many calls? How many this?
Yep.
Why? Because it's really easy. Because it's just really easy to measure it. And that's for sure part of the equation. But we see the best organizations expand that dashboard to four dimensions, really. It's results, yeah. But it starts with desire. We skip that step. If sales reps and the sales team doesn't have the desire, the motivation, sales is a grind. I mean, it's tough. It's rejection. People are telling, it's tough. So the desire to gut that out, to learn, to go to training, to get out of your comfort zone, to pick yourself back up when you get that call and says, God, Jeremy, you were really close consideration. This has been a really tough decision, but we're going to go with someone else. And that happens to you. That takes an attitude and someone who wants to really work. And so leaders who drive desire is the first piece. Then if people have a desire, the second piece that leaders drive in dimensional is capability. We talked about that. Do they have the skills and knowledge to we talked about decision to serve. That's kind of a talent thing. Salespeople, and we might talk later, but giving them the skills and knowledge to lead the customer. That's really our role that we're trying to create. It's about customers have lots of options and helping lead them, right? And so the ability to give them the skills and knowledge. So it's desire, it's capability, and then we can focus on not activity, but productivity. Look, we talk about sales calls. Anybody who's been in front of a phone need to make whatever number of calls a day. You want me to make 20 calls? Excuse me. Let me just press mute on this. Give me like 5 minutes and I'll make 20 calls, right? The question is that quality? Is that real? And so how do we measure the productive things in the sales process that are really accomplishing something? Mm-hmm. Organizations that have leaders that drive desire first, then they can drive the capability, and then the productivity comes, are who have the best results. Versus people want to skip to the end and say, if you do more calls and if you send out more contracts, you'll have more business. That's bull. That is not true at all.
Correct. Yeah. So quality over quantity, essentially.
Yeah, but you need both. I mean, you can't just sit there and, it's not, we work with companies to develop a point system. Everyone gets 100 points. It's easy. Everything's relative. In sales, if you're working and you're doing a presentation, you have a big proposal and you have a big meeting, that takes time and energy. And guess what? That day, that week, you're not going to make your call volume. But if you don't have any of those big presentations or things that you're doing, guess what? Pick up that phone, get those emails cooking. So it depends. It always changes.
How important are standards? Standards as a sales representative, you're attracting who you want to work with. There's confidence levels. So just, can you talk a little bit about setting the standard of who you will and won't work with?
Us as an organization in terms of a client that we look at, right? Is that what you're saying? Or
That in general. So for it can be that, or maybe if let's say like for the entrepreneurial advisor who listens to this right now, and they don't necessarily have to work with everybody because now there's the time, like there's only so many hours in the day, so many people in the team to work with other individuals. So if you set certain standards perhaps and you work with your ideal person, maybe you don't get as many wins, but on the long game it's worth it, but that's the grind too. So maybe talk to setting standards in sales, the challenges for that.
Mhm.
That's more so what I'm asking.
Okay, makes perfect sense. For sure, it's about being honest with yourself about what you do, and more importantly, what do you do uniquely? Like, what's your unique benefit and value? So it's really saying what's in my wheelhouse. Like, what can I do differently? And then what customer does that best serve? And so, again, there's lots of advisors listening and lots of business models that they're doing. But when you try to be everything to everybody, that's a hard thing. So I think it's really about, I think it's recognizing that customers, if we're other centered, the decision we make to serve is we want the best option. We want a client. If I'm an advisor and I really want that client to end up with the best option. And again, I'm going to talk out of my wheelhouse here. But when we talk about, my focus on, more of a retirement, long-term care, annuity type thing is, or more about early wealth building years. Like if you say I'm good at all those things, I just think it's hard to be good at everything. And so where is really the unique focus that you bring, your unique expertise, and what clients match up with that?
Hmm.
That's what I would say. And when we talk about clients, like what do we do? It's also about what do we not do? For example, I'll just use ASLAN as an example where people can relate. Like we do training and teach people to sell and teach people to be strategic and teach them to lead. But there's a lot to running the sales organization. People want to talk about comp plans or their go-to-market strategy or how they sort of align territories.
Hmm.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with a lot of senior, veteran, talented advisors. Here's the question. Can we do that? Can they do a lot of things? Yeah, we can do anything. But is that really what we do? Is that our sweet spot? No. And so the downside of anyone pursuing clients that they don't really serve, that are in that sweet spot, one is you're going to lose more often, so you're wasting time. And two, sometimes one of the worst things that happens is you actually win a new client. And now you have to deliver something that it, like, right? I mean, simplicity and sure, Mark, like you have things that you do and some things that you can do. And when you win those, sometimes you're like, oh, now what did I do? Now I have all this work and headache. So it's a balance to really say, what do I do? What do I not do? And try to stay in your lane. It's hard.
Hmm. And I also kind of want to build off of one of the things you said earlier. It is hard. So, and I know with y'all's experience of you being president for years now, organization around for 20 years, you've seen a lot of sales organizations, a lot of sales organizations. So maybe to your experience, what are some of the hardest habits to change in a salesperson?
Mm, yeah, it's a good question. And habits is a great word because I will say habits are what salespeople need. We need
Mhm.
habits, right? Habits are just something you do without thinking. In selling, you don't have time to think when you're talking to someone. It's like parenting, Jeremy, right? When your kids start giving you the machine gun, you don't have time to think, right? You have to react and respond. And so habits are a good thing, and good habits are a good thing. The bad habits are not. And what are those biggest ones? To me, it's the big one of the biggest. I think there's a two or three, but one of the biggest is I respond too quickly. Like the habit is
Yeah.
don't respond right away. And respond is two things because we do it both ways. When we hear it, we're asking the customers some questions. Tell me about your business. What are your needs? And they say something, you're an advisor, you're talking to a client and really need help with retirement. Like, you start drooling, right? It happens like, oh my God, I can help you with this. And I'm excited and I want to help you. That's great. And then you ask the customer one question and then you start just saying stuff. There's the other side, which is they say something, well, I don't really believe in, fixed indexed annuities because I read this on the internet. And now you respond not excited, but you want to go to court. You want to make an argument and you start to say, well, here's the 16 reasons why that's not true. And here's my data.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those are bad for a lot of reasons. But the number one key to influencing someone, to earning an invitation, is to validate their perspective. Nobody wants to hear your perspective until you understand theirs first. So we might even sit down and say, we'd like to ask a couple of questions, understand a little bit about your needs, and talk about how we might be able to help. You start talking, customer says something, the prospect says something, and you respond right away. And it just shuts everything down. That's a hard habit to break. It's somehow we feel like, okay, if your kid's getting ready to go put their hand on the hot stove, yeah, you should probably respond and do something. But if you watch themselves, doing something, the room keeps getting messier and messier, like whatever's happening, like just, you got to let it go. Like you can't respond to everything you see good and bad as a salesperson. That's a hard habit.
Introducing the Wealth Defender series from Ibexus, 3 innovative fixed index annuities built for growth, protection, and peace of mind. Choose guaranteed participation rates for the full contract term or premium bonuses up to 21%, plus access to 2 proprietary indices designed for performance. Protect against renewal rate risk with Ibexus's built-in bailout feature and offer clients enhanced contract value access during life's unexpected turns with the competitive and client-friendly ADL feature. Wealth Defender series by Ibexus, because true accumulation should come with strength and flexibility. I agree. And there's so many ways I want to go off of this. But I would say, what's a tip for somebody who is seeing that? I know through y'all's training process, there's a couple of processes in there, but what's a tip for somebody who has that mentality and they're consistently they're hitting that ceiling. They're like, I don't know what it is. Maybe I just need to see new people, but they just refuse to. They need that help. Like, what is the tip to get them to start seeing the world other centered, seeing it? So you guys always talk about meet them where they are, take them where they want to go. How do you do that?
Go to YouTube and search for like ASLAN training, take the trip or something. We teach something called the polar principle. And, these tips are they're little images that help us think about things. That's what we need to remember, right? We need a little framework. We call it take the trip. You're up here at one end of we're back to the globe and the North Pole, but we're back to the North Pole. We have a perspective of my advisory and what I do and why I'm good and what you should or shouldn't invest in. And when I talk to a client, sometimes they have a different perspective. And sometimes it's polar opposite principles. Like if I respond too quickly, then I haven't validated their perspective. Someone wants to feel heard and validated before they're open to yours. And so the tip is, I think about one thing. I think about when I'm doing discovery, when I'm asking questions, when I'm in a conversation, I think about one thing. The one thing I think about is, how do I, in 2, 5, 10, 20 minutes, how do I build the information so I can feed back to the customer, okay, let me see if I understand where you are. And I just feed back. It just helps me tell the story. You're thinking about this. You haven't thought about this. You don't want to do this. You've been burned before. You're sketchy, whatever. Just don't agree. Don't disagree. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't change it. Let them know this is where you are. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And what I'm searching, my tip, my brain is, I want to tell that story. And my goal is, they say, exactly. You understand where I'm coming from. My son, as my son gets older, he probably starts to listen to podcasts and hear me talking about him when he was little. That's easy. But now it's like, Dad, I heard you say this. So I love you, Lee. I'm so proud of you. But you've been a challenge. And like 5 years ago, when you're getting ready to go to college, he said, I want to take a gap year. Now let's just put on the table. College is not for everybody. Gap years are great. Let's just jump ahead to pretend that me and his mom, me and my wife decided that he needed structure. Let's just pretend that was the best thing for a 17-year-old to go to school and not, because if he did, he would be hanging out with some people that wouldn't be doing the right thing and just wouldn't be good. Let's just pretend that I wanted to influence him to go to college after high school. We had applied, and he comes, so I want to take a gap year. And my compass was broken, and I did what my dad would do, which was, over my dead body, you're going to take a gap year. And I yelled and all those things. And what happens? Nothing. I tell him the 13 reasons why that's a problem. I have a reason. He responds back. Nothing happens. Nothing. Calm down. Next day goes by. I walk into his room and I say, Lee, would you like to talk a little bit about your gap year thought? And I said, yes. And I said, tell me what's going on in your brain. Tell me why this has come to your mind. And he talks for 20 minutes. And he reveals a lot of things. And one of them is, I'm kind of afraid of failing, kind of afraid of going away to school kind of publicly and then like come home because I didn't cut it or I couldn't handle it or I got homesick or, mom's not there to cut the crust off my toast or whatever it is. And I come home. I don't want that to happen. And so all I did, Jeremy, was say, some of the things he said were great points. Some of the things he said from my perspective were totally illogical, but they're all his. And all I did was says, Lee, this is where you are and what you're thinking. Is that right? And he's like, yeah. He says, exactly. And here's what I want people to hear. 24 hours before, we were yelling and screaming. All I did was listen and respond. And he said, yeah. He says, Dad, but what do you think I should do? When he says exactly, he says, what do you think I should do? Because see, I've put that out there. Your customers want to know, you hear them, but you probably have an opinion and I want to know it. That invitation to influence is gold, and it's a hard habit for people to break. Don't respond too quickly. Take the trip.
I love that. That's a great story. And for also I don't know if you know this or not, but so the audience obviously works with us. We do an event called Taking the Trip. And so we actually have one of our top advisors there. They do an interview process with us and they literally open up their business. They go over their sales, operations, and marketing, and they just open up.
That's great.
So others can listen to what it is. So Tony, actually, when we were thinking of a name for it, so we piggybacked off of you guys. So we call it Taking the Trip.
I think that's perfect. That's a great story. I love that. Super helpful.
Great story with your son. That's
looking for an accounting internship, University of Central Florida, class of 2026. Super sharp. Just putting it out there.
Always good.
Is that okay? That's going to get edited out, isn't it? Isn't that going to get edited out?
No, we don't edit here. Free speech. So how has ASLAN sales training adjusted over the years, though? So I want to go back to a little bit of a lot of guys or girls have been doing this for 10 years. Then there's 15, 20, maybe even 30 years. And things come at you so fast. We now have, I talked about on the last episode, we got trillions, $170 trillion in motion over the next 20 years. So Gen Xers are going to be inheriting money. They get their information from the little cell phone. And so much influence is out there. So how have you guys adjusted, or you work with a lot of sales organizations? What's working? How do people stay relevant with technology, but still to the core values of what you guys teach?
The answer is, the first answer is how we changed. I can tell you that. The second thing is what's working. I'm not sure. That's changing every day. I'll share the first part. We've changed. We started in 1996 training inside salespeople on the phone. The phone is different, and that's what we trained. We kind of started with people will do things on the phone that they would never do to you in person. So we started with that. But what's the phone today? What's inside sales? It's all just a big mosh pit of field, in-person, virtual, cell phones. It's just so that whole medium of how we sell is totally changed. What hasn't changed is, I would say what's never changed about ASLAN is this idea of other-centered, right? This idea of, and we use the word other versus customer. I guess I don't know if this is how we change, but we've gotten stronger in this approach, which is if the goal of training is to help people learn and do something differently. We talked about habits they have, whether it's new hires building their set of habits, or whether it's veterans that need to sort of change with the times. Adults, what we say is beliefs drive behaviors.
Yeah.
And this is, and I would say as a company, we are being more bold about what really matters to people. When we talk about sales and we talk about influence, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about becoming a trusted advisor, trusted partner. But what really matters to people is like how that works personally for them. So we're not a marriage counseling or parenting class, but when we tell, the reason I tell a story about my son and how influence works is because that's our society. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things going on in the world, and people are going 100 miles an hour, and AI is here, and it's great for research, and it's great to learn an industry. Hey, what's on the whiteboard of this industry? What's on the whiteboard? There's so much information. But what hasn't changed, and I don't know how that will change, is the need to be uniquely valued, and appreciated and understood. There's that we call it unstated emotional needs that each person has, and so that core is in every relationship. It's spousal, it's parenting, it's customers. It's you go. I mean, I'll ask you, Jeremy, like. You can put you on the spot. You go to can you think about a local coffee shop, mechanic, restaurant, cafe, bar that you go to, not because the food is better or it's cheaper, it's more convenient, but somebody there makes you feel like the man, like anything you'd be willing to share.
Actually, there's a couple places, not to say feel like the man, but and this is probably something a lot of people can relate to. So when you go to a place and I get after my morning runs, or if I work out in the morning, I go stop at a local place, Island Grill. It's not too far from my house. And all of a sudden, I believe after the third time or so within a 10-day spurt, the lady now actually knows when I call in my order beforehand. So I don't even have to say my name. She says it right there. She's like, just by saying my name, it's like, okay. And then whenever I walk in, it's always the same thing. Even if she's not handing me the drink, she's maybe making coffee or doing something else with somebody else. She makes it an effort to go out of her way to say, hey, Jeremy. And not that like, that's why I keep coming back. But to your point though, that is something to where that's going that extra mile of the organization for me to be like, you know what, I do want to come back there. Now, in that same story, I think 2 weeks ago, I've been traveling a lot in February. She actually asked me, she goes, I haven't seen you a lot lately. And so I kind of felt guilty. And, and I was like, yeah.
Double your order for the next few weeks.
And I had to tell her why she hadn't seen me.
You had to explain to your barista, why you weren't ordering. Yeah.
Yeah.
But see all those. So is that sales? Is she in sales? Or you in sales? I don't know, but I know that those relationships, we help. We've doubled down on what we do is help people better connect, serve, and influence. That's what we do. Is that selling? Sure. Is that service? Sure. Is that parenting? Sure. And so where we've evolved is we've gone bolder on telling those personal stories. And I'll wrap up where I started, which is because beliefs drive behavior. If I came to someone of your advisor's organization and I taught the sales team the best way to open a call and how to lead discovery and how to take the trip and what questions we ask, that's fine. And they're like, that's a good idea. And I might try it, but it's like, I'm just teaching you how to do something. But when I encourage you to have a conversation with your son or daughter, like I just had, and people go do it and it changes things instantly, not only your influence, but your relationship, your communication, when that changes, your belief system changes. And selling, retirement investments is easy compared to influencing the people in your life that you love. I just spoke at a large conference for like an industrial firm, and it was a bunch of like experienced industrial blue collar people who have been in sales that seem kind of rough and gruff. We talked about account growth and all these things, but I worked in stories, not worked it in. I'm telling them on purpose because it's changing belief systems. When we left the conference and people come out and said, hey, that was cool, that was great. If let's just say 15 people said something to me, one person asked me a question about, hey, how's that account mapping software work and how do I better map my 14 people wanted to talk about their personal relationships because that's what people care about in life. That's the truth. We're all people. That's what's real. And we struggle to kind of go to work and produce and perform and the pressure's on. But at the end of the day, our ability to be other-centered and serve others, not customers, others. Every human being we talk to makes an enormous difference in our personal and therefore professional lives. That's where we've really doubled down. Yeah, we can talk about, we have some AI tools and lots of ways we evolved, but I know that's not answering your question, like what's working on technology, but I'm not really a tech. I would be, it would not be my sweet spot.
Yeah, no, but even to the point though, so I would say what you said is spot on, especially in not just the current environment, but people want to actively listen. So people want to feel like they're being heard from somebody, but also for the advisor to be able to regurgitate what they've listened to. And then this is the problem. It sounds like for you, how does that make you feel? And then here's what we can do to help you with that. So that's exactly where most people, especially talk around financials and their retirement plans. That's a very spot on presence. The thing with the technology, I would say, and I lean towards it the same way you do, of exactly what you said for like AI and as tech evolves, it's not to replace anything particular. It's just to make you more efficient as a person. So doing a podcast to where instead of you saying something for 15 to 20 to 30 minutes that you say every single day to someone, do a podcast episode on that and send that to the person so they can hear that in their downtime to get them further along to just be more efficient, but at the same time, still build on that relationship. So I was just wondering for you guys, especially for the listeners that are still with us, tuning in here, what are some tips for the listener around maybe just mindset or to help boost confidence? Because at the end of the day, sales is just confidence, having the stories for one. So if you don't have these amazing stories yet, but you're 2 or 3 years out from landing that big deal that you're working on. So what are some tips from the sales side to boost confidence and things that maybe you guys coach to help them get and develop those stories?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, confidence comes from feeling like we're right, we have something to add and we're helping people. We say other-centered people are more effective and they're more fulfilled. I mean, they're more confident. I don't know, but if you're effective and you feel good about it, that gives you confidence. The problem today is that a lot of sellers aren't confident because they feel like they're bothering people.
Yeah.
And you hear this come out, hey, can I just get a couple minutes of your time? Like, we're always asking for a favor for people. And would you mind? And would it be okay? When we talk about technology, for example, it's like, what's the right technology? It's do business with your customers and your prospects the way they want to do business. So if you have a texter, text them. If you have people who don't like text, pick that up and and that's how you do bother people when you're not like matching what they're doing. And to me, one of the tips to gain confidence that someone shared with me is, let's reverse the roles. Like, we're all sellers, or most of us are sellers listening to this.
Yeah.
But we're also customers. So reflect back, and it might be hard, but reflect back on when you had a good salesperson. Like, when did someone really help you? When did someone really understand you, lay out all the options, and you're like, gosh, that was like really helpful. Okay. So just be that person, right? Just be that person because, and here's the problem. Here's the headwind. There's a lot of really bad salespeople. 2019, Forbes has been studying like quota every year. In 2019, before COVID, had nothing to do with COVID, less than 50% of people made their quota. Now, there's a lot of arguments about whether there's more salespeople, whatever. But the bottom line is, sales is tough. People are missing quota. And so and I'll tell you one reason, because there's a lot of really bad salespeople out there. And so that's what customers are feeling. And when you start to engage, their expectations are low, their receptivity is low, their guard is up, and it feels like you're bothering them. If you can reflect what a good salesperson feels like on the other end, just strive to be that person. We talk about 2 P's. Perspective is we talk about a couple of P's, but one of them is we talk about pressure. Remove pressure. We teach a concept called, we talk about tug of war principle. You know the tug of war principle. If I give you a rope and I pull, I'm going to pull back. We're going to get into this tug of war. And when we start responding too early, or we start kind of pitching, we're applying pressure. Do this. This is what you should do. No one likes to be told that. We want freedom to choose. The only way to get out of a tug of war is to drop the rope, to say, look, to be honest and say, look, I know you have a lot of options. I'm going to present some things, but maybe this isn't the best option for you. And that's okay to say it. Ask permission to ask some questions. Ask permission to say, I heard what you said. I have a couple different ideas. Would you be open? I ask this question 100% of the time. Would you be open to hearing some of my thoughts and recommendations? So from a confidence perspective, if I don't ask that question, I'm sort of like pitching and getting my deck in and hoping they're listening and trying to go fast and hoping I hear something, and I'm a little nervous and my blood pressure is high. But when I say, hey, Jeremy, I appreciate what you're saying. I think some of those things make sense. I have a different opinion about a couple of things. Would you be open to hearing from my experience and just to see if it would be helpful? And when you say, yeah, I would be, all that pressure, the pressure hurts my confidence. Now I'm just like, great. I'm just going to tell you what I think from doing this for 20 years. If you agree, that's great. If you don't, that's your choice. That's, I think, what drives the confidence jitters of feeling like I'm bothering people and I apply pressure, because somehow that's what like people think sales is. And it couldn't be further. Sales is about earning an invitation to influence. That's 90% of the battle. The more we try to pressure, persuade, the harder it is. It's about earning an invitation for someone to say, Dad, what do you think? That's what sales is.
I love that. Where can people locate you, Mark?
Well, I'm hanging out in Southern Rhode Island, and it's a great place for about 4 months out of the year for boating. But you can find our website at aslantraining.com. We have a podcast, not as professionally done as this one maybe, but we call it Sales with Aslan. We've on our episode number 250, been doing it about 4 years, 5 years, tips and tricks. But yeah, find us on aslantraining.com, and there's some things that might be helpful.
That's great stuff. Anything to the listener as we are wrapping up here? Any words of wisdom from the great president, Marc Lamson?
There's 2 things that I just sort of come to mind as we wrap. One is, other-centered is a decision. And if you reflect in your life personally and professionally, we're a believer that other-centered makes you more effective in your role and more fulfilled. And that's what we all really want, to be fulfilled. So be other-centered. And the second thing I close with is, as I've worked with in Simplicity in SureMark for 2009-ish, if you are an other-centered organization. Jeremy, you're other-centered. You're putting this time, energy, and effort to sort of help people learn, be better at their business. So if you're looking for an other-centered organization, I grade you high on that. And I'm super flattered to spend time with you here. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time as well, Mark. So much value, literally. So much value. Drop the rope to so many things. So thank you for your time today. Thank you also to the listener for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite listening device to the Advisor Mentorship Podcast, and connect with us on LinkedIn at Jeremy Hauser, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Jeremy Hauser Amp. And as you share this episode with a friend or a colleague, remember, in a world full of betas, be an alpha.